She was just an exhausted single mom from Queens. He was the most feared man in the city. But when her daughter vanished, she walked up to him at a gas station and slipped a note into his hand. What he read made him drop everything, call his entire gang, and whisper two words that changed her life. "Get in the car." Nora's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles bone-white under the flickering neon of the highway gas station. 36 hours. That's how long it had been since she'd heard Lily's voice. 36 hours since her daughter had vanished from their apartment's parking lot, leaving behind only a dropped backpack and Nora's entire world shattered into pieces. The police had nodded sympathetically, taken notes, and told her to wait. Wait while her 8-year-old daughter was God knows where, with God knows who. So Nora stopped waiting. She'd spent every waking minute since then doing something the old Nora, the one who followed rules and trusted systems, would never have done. She'd followed the breadcrumbs the kidnappers didn't know they'd left. A voice in the background of the ransom call saying, "Tell Moretti we're moving the package," a tattoo visible on a hand in the proof-of-life photo, 3 daggers intertwined, the mark of the Moretti crime family. Her daughter had been taken by the Mafia. And now Nora was about to do something even crazier. The black Mercedes pulled into the gas station at 11:47 p.m., exactly as her source, a terrified bartender she'd tracked down in Little Italy, had promised. Dante Moretti bought cigarettes at this specific station every Tuesday night. Routine was a weakness, even for men who thought themselves untouchable. Nora watched him step out of the vehicle. Tall, maybe 6'2", wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Dark hair swept back, a face that belonged on a Roman coin, sharp, aristocratic, dangerous. 2 men in leather jackets flanked him, hands resting near their waistbands. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She had one shot at this. One chance to make him listen before his bodyguards removed her, permanently. Nora pushed open her car door, legs unsteady beneath her. She'd dressed carefully for this moment. Jeans, a simple black jacket, hair pulled back.
Non threatening.
Desperate, yes, but not crazy. She needed to look like someone who could be reasoned with, not dismissed. The fluorescent lights inside the station hummed and buzzed, casting everything in a sickly yellow-green glow. Dante stood at the counter, sliding a $100 bill across to the clerk for a pack of Marlboros. His bodyguards positioned themselves strategically, one watching the door, one watching the parking lot through the window. Nora walked in, forcing her breathing to slow. Normal. She was just another customer. She grabbed a bottle of water from the cooler, hands trembling so badly she nearly dropped it. At the counter, Dante pocketed his cigarettes and turned. This was it. Nora stepped directly into his path. Their eyes met. His were dark, almost black, and completely unreadable. She'd prepared a speech, practiced it 100 times in her car, but now every word evaporated. Instead, she pressed the folded note into his hand. For a moment, nothing happened. The bodyguards moved closer, but Dante raised one finger, a tiny gesture that froze them in place. He unfolded the paper slowly, deliberately, and read it under the harsh fluorescent light. Nora had written only 2 sentences. "They took my daughter. I know it's your men. Please. I'll do anything." She watched his face. Nothing changed in his expression. No shock, no anger, no sympathy. He might have been reading a grocery list. But something flickered in his eyes. Just for a second. Recognition, maybe. Or calculation. The silence stretched impossibly long. Then Dante folded the note carefully and slipped it into his jacket pocket. When he spoke, his voice was quieter than she'd expected, with just a trace of a Brooklyn accent smoothed over by years of careful control. "Get in the car." Not a question. A command. Nora's throat went dry. You approached me in public with this." He tilted his head slightly. "That means either you're telling the truth and desperate, or you're wearing a wire and stupid. Either way, we're not having this conversation here." He walked past her toward the door. "Get in the car, or go back to whatever hole you crawled out of." Your choice. The bodyguards watched her, hands now visibly resting on their weapons. Every instinct screamed at her to run. Getting into a car with Dante Moretti was insane. People who did that sometimes never came back. But Lily's face flashed in her mind, her gap-toothed smile, the way she hummed while doing homework, the constellation of freckles across her nose. Nora followed him out. The Mercedes idled quietly, its engine a low purr. One bodyguard opened the rear door. Dante slid in first, and after a heartbeat's hesitation, Nora climbed in after him. The door closed with a heavy, final thunk. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne. The windows were so heavily tinted that the gas station lights barely penetrated. As they pulled onto the highway, the outside world seemed to disappear entirely. Dante didn't look at her. He lit a cigarette, cracked the window an inch, and let the smoke curl out into the night air.
Talk, he said.
Nora's mouth was dry as sand. She forced the words out. Her name is Lily. She's 8 years old. They took her from our apartment building 2 days ago, Tuesday afternoon, 3:15 p.m. I got a call that night. They didn't ask for money, her voice cracked. They said they had her, that I'd get instructions. But no instructions came. Just another call yesterday morning with her crying in the background. Dante took a long drag from his cigarette. And you think my organization did this because in the second call, someone in the background said, "Tell Moretti we're moving the package," and the man who grabbed her had a tattoo, 3 intertwined daggers. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands, showed him the screenshot she'd taken from her building's security footage. "That's your family's mark." He studied the image, his expression still maddeningly neutral. "It is," he said finally. "But I didn't order any kidnappings. Especially not some random kid." The words hit her like a physical blow. "Then who?" "That," Dante said, crushing a cigarette in the ashtray, "is what we're going to find out." He leaned forward and tapped on the divider. The driver's voice crackled through. "Boss, take us to the safe house on Ashland." As the car changed direction, Dante finally turned to look at Nora fully. His eyes were hard, but there was something else there too, something that might have been anger, but not directed at her. "If someone in my organization took your daughter without authorization, they didn't just cross you," he said quietly. "They crossed me, and that's a mistake people don't usually live to regret." For the first time in 36 hours, Nora felt something besides terror. She felt hope. The car sliced through the darkness of the highway, heading deeper into the city. Nora sat rigid in her seat, hyper-aware of every breath, every movement Dante made beside her. The initial adrenaline was fading now, replaced by a cold, creeping dread. She was in a car with a man whose name made grown men go pale. A man responsible for things she'd only read about in newspapers, things that ended with body counts and federal investigations that went nowhere. But he was also her only chance. Dante's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, typed something quickly, then pocketed it again. The silence between them felt heavy, oppressive. "Start from the beginning," he said, his voice cutting through the hum of the engine. "Everything that happened. Details matter." Nora swallowed hard and nodded. "Tuesday. I work 2 jobs, morning shift at a diner in Queens, evening shift cleaning offices downtown. Lily goes to PS 184. Usually my neighbor, Mrs. Chun, picks her up and watches her until I'm home around 7-inch. Usually, Dante repeated, catching the word. Tuesday, Mrs. Chun was sick. I arranged for Lily to take the bus home alone, just this once. She's done it before. She knows to go straight to our apartment, lock the door, don't answer for anyone except me. Nora's voice wavered. She never made it inside. Security footage shows her getting off the bus at 3:12 p.m. She's walking toward our building. Then at 3:15, a gray van pulls up. 2 men get out. One distracts her, looks like he's asking directions, and the other comes from behind, grabs her. The whole thing takes maybe 10 seconds. They're professionals. Dante's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The van. Stolen plates. Police found it abandoned in Newark the next morning, wiped clean. And the first call? Nora closed her eyes, the memory cutting through her like glass. Tuesday night, 11:30 p.m. Blocked number. A man's voice, deep, calm. He said, "We have your daughter. Keep your mouth shut and wait for instructions." Then he put her on. She said, her voice broke. She said, "Mommy," and then they cut her off. The car turned off the highway, merging into narrower city streets. Streetlights strobed across Dante's face as he listened, his expression carved from stone. Second call was yesterday morning, Nora continued. Different voice this time, younger, nervous. He said they were moving her to a secure location and I'd hear from them soon. But in the background, that's when I heard it. Someone yelling, "Tell Moretti's we're moving the package." That's when I knew. Knew what? That this wasn't random. That they didn't take Lily for ransom money I don't have. She turned to face him fully. They took her to send a message.
To you.
Dante was quiet for a long moment, his fingers drumming once against his knee, the first sign of agitation she'd seen from him. "You did research before approaching me," he said. It wasn't a question. "I'm a single mother from Queens with a high school diploma. You think I just stumbled onto a Mafia boss at a gas station by accident?" Despite her fear, there was steel in Nora's voice now. "I spent 36 hours, not sleeping. I called in every favor I had. I found someone who knew someone who'd worked in one of your clubs. I learned your routine. I learned what your family mark looks like. And I learned that you don't hurt kids. That's a line you supposedly don't cross." Something that might have been respect flickered in Dante's eyes. Supposedly. I'm betting my daughter's life on supposedly. The car slowed, turning into an alley between two industrial buildings. Security lights flickered on, illuminating a heavy steel door. The driver got out, spoke into an intercom, and the door rolled open to reveal an underground parking garage. As they descended into the concrete depths, Dante leaned back in his seat, his expression darkening. 3 weeks ago, a shipment of mine was intercepted. Not by the feds, by someone who knew the route, the timing, everything. 2 weeks ago, one of my legitimate businesses got raided based on an anonymous tip that turned out to be bullshit, but it cost me time and money. Last week, a meeting location got leaked to a rival family. He turned to look at Nora directly, and for the first time, she saw genuine anger burning behind those dark eyes. Someone inside my organization is making moves. Testing boundaries. Seeing what they can get away with. His voice dropped lower. Taking your daughter, and using my family's name? That's not just unauthorized. That's a declaration. A declaration of what?
Va.
The word hung in the air between them as the car stopped. The driver opened Dante's door, and he stepped out smoothly, buttoning his suit jacket. He turned back to Nora. "Someone wants me to look weak. Wants to prove I can't control my own people." His eyes were hard as flint. They chose the wrong way to make their point. Nora climbed out of the car, her legs unsteady on the concrete. "So you'll help me find her?" Dante started walking toward a service elevator, his footsteps echoing in the empty garage. "I'm going to find whoever did this," he said without looking back. "And when I do, you'll get your daughter back." He pressed the elevator button. "And they'll get what they deserve." The elevator opened directly into a loft apartment that looked nothing like Nora had expected. No dark, dingy basement with blood on the floors. Instead, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline, modern furniture arranged with careful precision, and soft lighting that felt almost warm. It was the kind of place featured in architecture magazines, not the kind of place where crimes were planned. But appearances, Nora was learning, could be deceiving. Dante shrugged off his jacket and draped it over a leather chair. He rolled up his sleeves methodically, revealing forearms marked with faded scars. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the sofa. "We're going to go through everything again. Slowly. Every detail you remember, no matter how small. I already told you. You gave me the overview." He poured 2 glasses of water from a pitcher on the bar, handed her one. "Now I need the specifics. Names, times, voices, background sounds. Anything they said that seemed off. Anything you noticed that your conscious mind dismissed but your subconscious flagged. Nora sank onto the sofa, exhaustion crashing over her in waves. She hadn't slept in a day and a half. Hadn't eaten much either. But she forced herself to focus. Okay, from the beginning. For the next hour, Dante questioned her like a detective. What exactly was Lily wearing? Did the men in the van have any distinguishing features? What was the timeline between the first and second calls? Were there any ambient sounds, traffic, voices, music? Nora answered everything, pulling up photos on her phone, playing the voicemail from the first call that she'd saved despite her hands shaking so badly she'd almost deleted it. Dante listened to it 3 times, his head tilted, eyes closed. The first caller, he said finally. Brooklyn accent, probably mid-40s. Professional. He's done this before, he opened his eyes. The second caller is younger, nervous. He's new to this. And that background voice. Tell Moretti we're moving the package. That's someone trying to send a very specific message.
To you.
To whoever's listening. To me, yes, but also to anyone else in the organization who might be wavering. Dante set down the phone. This is about more than your daughter. She's leverage in a bigger play. The word should have made Nora angry, should have made her scream that Lily was a person, not leverage. But she was too tired for rage. And besides, Dante was right. The ransom demands, he said. Show me. Nora pulled up the photos on her phone, the ones that had arrived via an encrypted messaging app she'd been instructed to download. 3 images. Lily sitting on a concrete floor, eyes red from crying but physically unharmed. A newspaper from Wednesday visible in the corner proving she was alive yesterday. And a handwritten note with instructions to wait. Dante studied each image with the intensity of someone examining evidence at a crime scene. He zoomed in on details, enlarged corners of the frame, studied shadows and angles. This floor, he muttered. Industrial. Old building, probably warehouse district. And this, he pointed to a barely visible mark on the wall behind Lily. That's water damage. Flooding pattern. Near a river or the harbor. How can you tell all that? Because I've owned half the warehouses in the city at one point or another. He stood, pacing now. They're keeping her somewhere they think is secure. Somewhere connected to my operations, but removed enough that I wouldn't think to look there immediately. He pulled out his phone and made a call.
Marco.
I need you to pull records on every property currently or formerly associated with our operations in the Harbor District. Yes, all of them. And cross-reference with anyone who had access to those locations in the last 6 months. A pause. No, not tomorrow.
Now.
He ended the call and turned back to Nora. How much do you know about organized crime? Honestly, just what I've seen in movies. Then let me give you the real version. Dante sat across from her, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. Crime families work because of structure and loyalty. You break that, you break everything. Someone in my organization taking unauthorized action, especially something this bold, means they're either incredibly stupid or they're backed by someone powerful enough to make them feel protected. Who would be powerful enough? That's what I need to find out. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned. But I have suspicions. Tell me. No, he stood again. The less you know about internal politics, the safer you are. You came to me for help finding your daughter. That's what I'm going to do. The rest is my problem. Nora rose too, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. She's my daughter. This is my problem. If knowing more helps get her back, then tell me. Dante studied her for a long moment, something like approval crossing his face. You've got spine. I'll give you that. He checked his watch. In 3 hours, I'm meeting with my inner circle, the people I actually trust. You'll be in the next room. You'll listen. You'll watch reactions when I mention certain things. You don't know these men, which means you'll see things I might miss because I'm too close. What am I looking for? Anyone who's too calm. Anyone who's too surprised. Anyone who deflects or overexplains. His eyes locked onto hers. You're a mother. You've spent 8 years reading your kid's face to know when she's lying about brushing her teeth or doing homework. Use those same instincts on dangerous men. And if I spot something, then we'll know who took your daughter. Dante's voice dropped to something cold and final. And I'll handle it from there. The private club sat in the basement of what appeared to be an ordinary Italian restaurant in Little Italy. But the restaurant had closed hours ago, and the few people who remained spoke in hushed tones as Dante entered through the kitchen entrance. They nodded respectfully, eyes tracking him but never making direct contact. Nora followed, feeling like she'd stepped into another world. Through here, Dante said, leading her down a hallway lined with black and white photographs of old New York, men in fedoras, storefronts with Italian names, street corners that probably didn't exist anymore. He opened a door to a small room furnished with a single chair and a two-way mirror looking into a larger space. A private dining room with a long mahogany table, crystal decanters of liquor, and heavy velvet curtains blocking any outside light.
Seat. Watch.
Listen, Dante's instructions were clipped, efficient. If you need me urgently, knock twice on the mirror. Otherwise, stay quiet no matter what you hear. Will they know I'm here?
No.
And that's your advantage. He checked his phone one more time. They'll be here in 10 minutes. Then he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. Nora sat in the darkness, her heart pounding. Through the mirror, she watched Dante move around the room, pouring himself a drink, checking his own reflection briefly in a mirror on the far wall. He looked calm, composed. Dangerous. Exactly 10 minutes later, the door to the dining room opened. 4 men entered, and Nora studied each of them carefully. The first was older, maybe 60, with silver hair and an expensive suit. He carried himself with authority, moved with the careful precision of someone whose body had slowed, but whose mind hadn't. Dante greeted him with genuine warmth. "Tommy." "Boss," the older man replied, taking a seat at the table. The second man was younger, built like a boxer, with a scar running through his left eyebrow. He nodded to Dante but said nothing, positioning himself near the door. Security, Nora guessed. The third was smooth, almost pretty, with styled hair and manicured nails. He smiled easily, poured himself a drink without asking. "Midnight meetings," he said lightly. "Must be serious." "It is, Polly," Dante replied. The fourth man entered last, and something about him immediately set Nora's nerves on edge. He was average height, average build, forgettable in almost every way except for his eyes. They moved constantly, cataloging exits, measuring distances, never quite settling. When Dante looked at him, the man's smile was just a fraction too wide. "Vince," Dante said. No warmth in his voice this time. "Boss." "What's the emergency?" They all took seats around the table. Dante remained standing, a subtle power play that wasn't lost on anyone in the room. 3 weeks ago, we lost a shipment, Dante began. 2 weeks ago, one of our legitimate fronts got raided. Last week, information about a meeting location leaked to the Calabrese family. He let the words hang in the air. Someone's been making moves against us. From the inside. Tommy's face darkened. "You sure about that?" "Positive." Polly leaned back in his chair, swirling his drink. "Could be coincidence. Bad luck happens." "Not this consistently," Dante's voice was steel. "And now something else has happened. Something that crosses every line we have." The room went silent. Vince shifted in his seat almost imperceptibly. 2 days ago, Dante continued, someone kidnapped an 8-year-old girl. Used our family's name, our marks, made it look like an authorized operation.
Jesus Christ, Tommy Briated.
Who? That's what I'm asking you. Dante's eyes moved from face to face. The kidnappers mentioned my name specifically. They wanted whoever was listening to know this was connected to me. To us. The boxer by the door straightened slightly. That's not how we operate. Everyone here knows we don't touch kids.
Exactly.
Which means whoever did this wanted to damage our reputation. Make me look weak or out of control. Dante poured himself another drink, his movements deliberate. The girl's mother came to me tonight. Gave me proof, security footage, recordings, timeline. Everything checks out. Nora watched each man's reaction carefully, exactly as Dante had instructed. Tommy looked genuinely angry, his hands clenching into fists on the table. The boxer seemed confused, his brow furrowed. Polly looked concerned but calculating, like he was running through possibilities. And Vince's reaction was wrong. For just a moment, his eyes widened. Not in surprise, but in something else. Fear? Recognition? Then his face smoothed into careful neutrality. Vince started, then cleared his throat. That's insane. None of us would authorize something like that. You know that, boss.
Doi.
Dante's question was soft, dangerous. Of course you do, Vince leaned forward, too earnest now, overcompensating. We're loyal. All of us. Someone's trying to frame the family, make us look like animals. Could be the Calabrese crew, or maybe. The Calabrese family doesn't have access to our internal communications, Dante interrupted. They don't know our shipping routes. They don't know which properties we own. But someone at this table does. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Tommy spoke first. You saying one of us is the traitor? I'm saying someone very close to our operations is involved. Whether it's someone in this room or someone you've trusted too much, that's what we need to figure out.
Vince stood abruptly.
I don't have to sit here and be accused.
Sit.
Down, Dante's voice cracked like a whip. For a moment, Vince hesitated. Then slowly, he lowered himself back into his chair. But his hands were shaking. And Nora had seen everything she needed to see. 20 minutes after the meeting ended, Dante entered the observation room. Nora was already standing, her body tense with urgency. Vince, she said immediately. It's Vince. Dante's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. What did you see? When you mentioned the kidnapping, everyone else reacted with shock or anger. But Vince, he knew already. For just a second, before he controlled it, he looked terrified. And then he overcompensated, talking too much, too fast, trying to deflect. Nora stepped closer.
He's involved.
I'd stake my life on it. You might be, Dante said quietly. But you're right. I've known Vince for 6 years. Brought him up through the ranks myself. And tonight, I watched him lie to my face. The words carried a weight that made Nora's stomach turn. Whatever happened to Vince after this, it wouldn't be pleasant. Can you make him talk? Find out where Lily is. If I move on him directly, whoever he's working with will know we're onto them. They'll move your daughter again, possibly kill her to eliminate evidence. Dante pulled out his phone, scrolling through messages. We need to be smarter than that. Then what do? We follow the evidence. An hour ago, Marco sent me a list of properties matching the warehouse description from your photos. There are 12 locations. I've got teams checking them now, but I want to see one myself. He met her eyes. One that Vince had access to until 3 months ago, when I reassigned him to different operations. You think that's where they're keeping her? I think Vince knows we might trace things back to old locations, which means he'd avoid his current assignments. But a place he used to manage? One that's supposed to be out of rotation? That's the kind of oversight people make when they think they're being clever. 15 minutes later, they were in the Mercedes again, driving through industrial neighborhoods where streetlights were sparse and businesses were shuttered behind chain-link fences. The boxer from the meeting, Dante had called him Leo, drove while another man Nora didn't recognize sat in the passenger seat, a gun resting casually in his lap. The building we're checking was a storage facility for restaurant equipment, Dante explained as they drove. Legitimate business, owned by a shell company that traces back to me through 3 other corporations. We stopped using it when we consolidated operations. But Vince would still have keys. He would have had them. Supposedly turned them in when he switched assignments. Dante's jaw tightened. I'm betting he kept copies. They pulled up to a 4-story brick building that looked like it had been abandoned for years. Broken windows on the upper floors, weeds growing through cracks in the parking lot, graffiti marking the walls. But when Leo tried the loading dock door, it opened smoothly, recently oiled hinges, Nora noticed. Someone had been here. Stay behind me, Dante ordered, pulling a handgun from inside his jacket. Leo, take point. Marco, watch our backs. They entered in formation, flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. The first floor was exactly what it appeared to be: old industrial space filled with rusted equipment, pallets of rotting wood, water damage staining the concrete floors. But there were footprints in the dust. Recent ones. They followed the tracks to a stairwell at the back of the building. Dante held up a fist, and everyone froze. He listened, head tilted, then gestured them forward. The second floor was darker, the windows boarded up from inside. Their flashlights revealed more empty space, but there was something different here. The air smelled wrong, like food, like someone had been living here. There, Nora whispered, pointing. In the corner, partially hidden behind a stack of crates, a makeshift living area. A dirty mattress, empty water bottles, fast food wrappers. And on the floor, caught under the edge of the mattress, a hair ribbon, pink with white polka dots. Nora's legs nearly gave out. She'd bought that ribbon for Lily 3 months ago. Lily had been wearing it Tuesday morning when she left for school. Dante picked it up carefully, examined it in the flashlight beam. She was here. Recently. But she's not here now. Nora's voice cracked with desperation. Where is she? Leo was searching the area, moving crates, checking corners. Boss, over here. They crowded around. On the wall, someone had written in marker, dates and times. A schedule. The last entry was from yesterday, 2,100 hours. Transfer to location B. They moved her last night, Dante said, his voice tight with controlled anger. 9 p.m. That's 3 hours after the second phone call to you. They knew someone might come looking, so they relocated. Location B, where's that? That's what we need to figure out. Dante pulled out his phone, took pictures of everything, the ribbon, the schedule, the setup. But now we know Vince is definitely involved. This was one of his buildings. And look at this. He pointed to one of the empty food wrappers. Stamped on it was a logo. Gino's Deli, fresh since 1982. Gino's is 2 blocks from Vince's apartment, Dante said. He's been coming here personally, bringing her food. He's not just coordinating, he's hands-on with this. Marco spoke up from near the stairs. Boss, we should move. If they're monitoring this location. A sound from below. Footsteps, fast and deliberate. Dante's gun came up instantly. He moved to the stairwell, Leo flanking him. Voices echoed from the first floor. 2, maybe 3 men. Supposed to be empty, Vince said. Dante's eyes met Nora's across the darkness. They'd been made. Out the back, he whispered.
Now.
They moved fast through the darkness, Leo leading them to a fire escape that groaned under their weight. Below, car doors slammed. Voices shouted orders. At least 5 men, maybe more. Go, go. Dante pushed Nora ahead of him as gunfire erupted, bullets sparking off metal railings. They hit the ground running, sprinting through the alley behind the building. Marco returned fire, covering their retreat. The Mercedes roared to life, where they'd left it on a side street, and they dove inside just as more men rounded the corner. Drive, Dante shouted. Leo floored it, the car fishtailing before gaining traction. Bullets shattered the rear window, and Nora screamed, ducking as glass rained over them. Dante pulled her down, shielding her with his body as they raced through narrow streets. They knew we were coming, Marco said from the front seat, reloading his weapon. Someone tipped them off.
Vince, Dante growled.
He must have had surveillance on the building. The second we showed up, he sent his people. Nora's heart hammered against her ribs. Does that mean they'll move Lily again? Yes, the single word was heavy with implications. They drove in tense silence for 10 minutes, taking random turns, doubling back, ensuring they weren't followed. Finally, Leo pulled into an underground parking garage downtown, killing the lights. Dante's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID, and something dangerous crossed his face. It's Vince. He answered on speaker. What? Boss, I just heard what happened at the warehouse. Are you okay? Vince's voice was smooth, concerned.
Perfect.
I've got people trying to figure out who those shooters were. Could be the Calabrese crew making a move. Cut the act. Vince. Dante's voice was ice. I know it was you. Silence on the other end. Then, slowly. I don't know what you're talking about. The warehouse was yours. The timing was yours. The girl was being kept in a building you had keys to. Dante leaned forward. You made one mistake, though. You cared enough to bring her food yourself. Gino's Deli, Vince. 2 blocks from your apartment. More silence. When Vince spoke again, his voice had changed. No more pretense. Just cold calculation. You're smarter than I gave you credit for. Where's the girl? Safe. For now, a pause. Here's what's going to happen, Dante. You're going to step down. Quietly. Hand operations over to new management. If you do that, the kid goes home to her mother. Everyone walks away. New management, Dante repeated. Meaning you? Meaning people who understand that you've gone soft. That you're more concerned with rules and honor than with profit. Vince's voice hardened. The old ways are dying, boss. Time to adapt or get out of the way. Nora grabbed the phone before Dante could stop her. If you hurt her, if you touch one hair on her head. The mother. How sweet. Vince's laugh was cruel. Don't worry, lady. Your kid's just business. Nothing personal. Meet me, Dante said, taking the phone back. We'll talk. You want a transition of power? Fine. But we do it face to face. Professionally. And the girl goes free first. You think I'm stupid? You'll have 20 guys waiting to put bullets in me. Doc sighed. Pier 17. 1 hour. Dante checked his watch. Just you and me. I come alone, you come alone. We settle this like men. You get what you want, and the girl's mother gets what she wants. Everybody wins. Vince was quiet, thinking. How do I know you'll honor that? Because if I wanted you dead right now, I'd have sent Leo to your apartment the second you left my meeting. You're still breathing because I want this handled cleanly. Dante's voice dropped. 1 hour, Vince. Don't make me come looking for you. He hung up. Marco turned from the front seat. Boss, this is a trap. He's not coming alone. I know. Dante was already texting rapidly. Neither am I. But you said. I said I'd come alone. I didn't say anything about sniper positions on the surrounding buildings. He finished typing and looked at Leo. Call Romano. Tell him I need his best marksman at Pier 17 in 45 minutes. Concealed positions with clear sight lines to the meeting point. And what about me? Nora asked. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. She's my daughter, and he's got her. I deserve to be there. You'll get yourself killed. Dante's voice softened slightly. Or worse, you'll distract me at the wrong moment, and we'll both get killed. Then your daughter loses the only 2 people actively trying to save her. Nora wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. Then what do? You wait in a safe location with Marco. When this is over, when Vince tells us where your daughter is, Marco will go get her while I clean up the mess. Dante met her eyes. Trust me to do what I'm good at. 30 minutes later, Nora watched from a car 4 blocks away as Dante walked alone onto Pier 17. Rain had started falling, turning the docks into a maze of shadows and reflected streetlights. She could barely see him through the curtain of water. He'll be fine, Marco said beside her. Boss has been in worse situations, but Nora's hands were clenched so tight her nails drew blood from her palms. On the pier, a figure emerged from the darkness. Vince, wearing a long coat, walking with the confidence of someone who thought he'd already won. The 2 men faced each other in the rain. And then chaos erupted. Muzzle flashes lit up the night, not from Dante's snipers, but from the containers stacked around the pier. 6, 7, 8 shooters emerging from hiding. Vince had brought an army. The sound of gunfire echoed across the water like thunder. Nora lunged for the car door, but Marco grabbed her arm. Stay down. Through the rain-streaked windshield, she saw Dante dive behind a concrete barrier as bullets tore through the space where he'd been standing. Vince was running, scrambling for cover. The snipers Dante had positioned returned fire, and suddenly the pier was a war zone. We have to help him, Nora screamed. He knew this might happen. He's prepared, but even Marco looked tense, his hand on his weapon. Boss can handle himself. For 3 minutes that felt like 3 hours, gunfire punctuated the night. Then, as suddenly as it started, silence fell. Marco's phone buzzed. Yeah. He listened, then exhaled slowly. Copy that. On our way. What happened? Boss is alive. Vince ran. 3 of his men are down. The rest scattered. Marco started the car. We're meeting at Doc Castellano's place. Boss took a hit. Nora's blood ran cold. How bad? He's walking. That's all I know. They drove through rain-soaked streets to a neighborhood that looked residential and quiet, the last place you'd expect to find an underground doctor. Marco pulled up to a modest townhouse with a green door and a small garden out front. Inside, past the normal-looking living room, they descended into a basement that had been converted into a fully equipped medical clinic. Dante sat on an examination table, his shirt off, blood seeping from his left shoulder. An older man with wire-rimmed glasses was cleaning the wound. You're lucky, he said in a thick Italian accent. Bullet went clean through. No major damage. Doesn't feel lucky, Dante muttered, then looked up as Nora entered. You should have stayed in the car. You're bleeding because of my daughter. Nora moved closer despite the doctor's disapproving look. The least I can do is be here. Dante studied her for a moment, then nodded. Doc, this is Nora. Nora, this is Dr. Castellano. Best surgeon in 3 states, and he doesn't exist according to any medical board. Retired, the doctor corrected. I patch up idiots who get themselves shot doing stupid things. Speaking of which, ambushing a traitor at the docks in a rainstorm? What did you think would happen? I thought my snipers would have better angles. Dante winced as the doctor probed the wound. Vince was smarter than I expected. He had men positioned in the containers. Romano couldn't get clear shots without risking hitting me. Did anyone follow Vince? Nora asked. Leo's tracking him now. But Vince went to ground fast. He knows every hole in this city. Dante's jaw tightened as the doctor began stitching. He'll reach out again. He's committed now. No turning back. Marco appeared in the doorway. Boss, we got a problem. Word spreading about the shootout. The Calabrese family is asking questions. So is the Giordano crew. Everyone wants to know if there's instability they can exploit. Tell them it's internal business. Being handled. They might not wait for us to handle it. Dante closed his eyes briefly, and for the first time, Nora saw exhaustion in his face. Real, human tiredness. Then we move faster. What about the warehouse? Any other evidence? Romano's team swept it. Found a burner phone hidden in the ceiling tiles. Tech guys are pulling data from it now.
Good.
Tell them I want everything, call logs, messages, GPS history. He looked at Marco. And put eyes on Vince's known associates. Girlfriends, cousins, anyone he might run to. Marco nodded and disappeared upstairs. The doctor finished stitching and wrapped Dante's shoulder in clean bandages. No heavy lifting for 3 days. And for God's sake, stay out of gunfights. I'll try. Dante slid off the table, testing his range of motion. He moved stiffly, but without complaint. The doctor left them alone, heading upstairs to clean his instruments. In the sudden quiet, the reality of the situation seemed to settle over the room like a weight. Nora stood by the examination table, her arms wrapped around herself. You almost died tonight. For someone you don't even know. For a kid you never met. I didn't do it for her, Dante said quietly, reaching for his ruined shirt and deciding against it. I did it because Vince crossed a line. Because he used my name, my organization, to hurt an innocent person. He looked at her directly. That kind of thing doesn't go unanswered. Still, you could have walked away. Told me it wasn't your problem. I could have. He picked up a clean shirt the doctor had left on a nearby chair, struggled briefly to pull it on with his injured shoulder. Without thinking, Nora stepped forward to help, easing the fabric over his bandages. Their faces were close now, and Nora saw something in his eyes she hadn't expected. Not attraction exactly, but recognition. Understanding. You held yourself together when most people would have shattered, Dante said softly. You tracked down a man most people are too terrified to approach. You got in my car not knowing if you'd ever get back out. And you're still standing, still fighting for your daughter." He paused. "I don't forget strength like that." Nora's eyes burned with unshed tears. For 36 hours, she'd been running on pure adrenaline and terror. Now, in this quiet moment, the fear tried to overwhelm her. What if we don't find her in time? The words came out broken. What if Vince panics and... He won't, Dante's voice was firm. Your daughter is his only leverage. As long as he thinks he can trade her for his safety, she stays alive. And when he realizes he can't trade her, when he knows you won't let him walk away. Dante didn't answer immediately. They both knew the truth. Then we find her before that happens, he said finally. Nora nodded, wiping her eyes.
Okay.
What's next? Next, we wait for the phone data. And we prepare for Vince's next move. Dante pulled on his jacket carefully. He's desperate now. Desperate people make mistakes. Let's hope he makes one soon. The burner phone yielded more than Dante had hoped. By dawn, his tech team had extracted call logs, text messages, and GPS coordinates that painted a picture of Vince's operation. Most importantly, they found financial transactions, wire transfers moving through offshore accounts, eventually landing at a luxury casino called the Venetian Pearl. Money laundering, Dante explained to Nora over coffee in his loft. Neither of them had slept. Vince needed funding for his coup attempt. You don't buy loyalty cheap. The Venetian Pearl is known for cleaning dirty money. They run it through their tables, their restaurants, their hotel. In one end as cash, out the other as gambling winnings. So we go there? We do. Tonight. They're hosting a high-stakes poker event. Invitation only, but I know the owner. We'll get in, ask some questions, see who Vince has been meeting with. He studied her over his coffee cup. You up for this? Nora thought about Lily, about another day passing with her daughter scared and alone. What do you need me to do? Be my date. Play the part. These people respond to appearances. They need to believe you belong there. He set down his cup. And keep your eyes open. We're looking for connections, familiar faces, anything that ties back to Vince or his operation. 6 hours later, Nora barely recognized herself in the mirror. Dante had sent someone, a woman named Sophia, who asked no questions, with an evening gown, heels, and a makeup kit. The dress was midnight blue, elegant without being ostentatious. Her hair was styled in soft waves. She looked like someone who belonged on the arm of a man, like Dante Moretti. You clean up well, Dante said when she emerged. He wore a tailored black suit, his injured shoulder hidden beneath the perfect cut of the fabric. A thin silver chain was visible at his collar, the first jewelry she'd seen him wear. So do you. The Venetian Pearl sat on the waterfront, all glass and marble and old-world glamour. Valets took their car. A doorman in a burgundy uniform opened the entrance. Inside, crystal chandeliers cast warm light over thick carpets and gilded walls. The air smelled like expensive perfume and older money. Dante placed his hand on the small of Nora's back, guiding her through the crowd. To anyone watching, they were just another wealthy couple enjoying an evening out. But Nora felt the tension in his touch, saw how his eyes constantly scanned faces, exits, security positions. Mr. Moretti, a man in his 50s, approached, wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. What a pleasant surprise. We weren't expecting you this evening. Last-minute decision. Vincent. Dante's tone was cordial but controlled. You know how it is. Beautiful night. Beautiful companion.
Couldn't resist.
Vincent's gaze slid to Nora, assessing. Indeed. Will you be joining the poker tournament? Perhaps. First, we thought we'd enjoy dinner. Your private dining room available? For you? Always. Vincent snapped his fingers, and a hostess appeared to lead them through the casino floor. They passed rows of slot machines, blackjack tables, roulette wheels. Wealthy patrons laughed and gambled, oblivious to the undercurrents of the world they inhabited. Nora watched them, wondering how many knew what this place really was. The private dining room overlooked the casino floor through one-way glass. They could see everything. No one could see them. Order whatever you want, Dante said once they were alone. We might be here a while. A waiter appeared, took their order, and disappeared. Dante positioned his chair to watch the floor below, his eyes moving methodically from table to table. There, he said quietly. Blackjack, table 7. The dealer. Nora looked. A young man, early 30s, dealing cards with practiced efficiency. Nothing remarkable about him except his ring, she whispered. On the dealer's right hand, a silver ring with a small turquoise stone. Distinctive, unique. And Nora had seen it before. Lily's teacher gave her a ring exactly like that, she said, her heart racing. Miss Patricia. She said it was a good luck charm for her math test. Lily wore it for a week, then said she lost it. Dante's expression hardened. She didn't lose it. Someone took it. But why would her teacher? The teacher might not be involved. But someone who had access to your daughter had access to her belongings. He pulled out his phone, texted rapidly. I'm having someone pull records on that dealer. Name, address, known associates. They watched the dealer work. He was smooth, professional, charming with the customers. Every 30 minutes, he took a break, heading through a door marked staff only. He's moving something, Dante said. Information, probably. Maybe cash. The waiter brought their food, but neither of them ate much. They were hunting now, following a thread that might lead to Lily. 20 minutes later, Dante's phone buzzed. He read the message, and something dark crossed his face. The dealer's name is Marcus Chen. He lives in Queens. Dante looked up at Nora. Same building as you. The revelation hit her like a physical blow. Mrs. Chen's grandson. He was visiting last month. Lily met him in the hallway. She thought his ring was cool, and Nora's voice shook. He asked her about it. About the one her teacher gave her. Said they could be ring buddies. He was casing her. Learning her routine, her vulnerabilities. Dante stood. He's connected to Vince somehow. He had to be. This is too coordinated to be coincidence. What do? We follow him when his shift ends. See where he goes. Dante's hand moved to his jacket, where Nora knew he kept his gun. And we find out what he knows about your daughter's location. Below them, Marcus Chen dealt another hand, smiling at his customers. Completely unaware that his world was about to end. Marcus Chen's shift ended at midnight. Dante and Nora watched him leave through the staff entrance, climbing into a silver Honda that had seen better days. Leo followed at a distance in an unmarked sedan while Dante and Nora trailed in the Mercedes. He's heading toward the old industrial district, Leo reported through the phone. Same area as the first warehouse. Stay on him, Dante ordered. But keep distance. If he's going to Lily, we can't spook him. They drove through increasingly desolate streets, past shuttered factories and empty lots. Finally, Marcus pulled into an alley behind a 3-story brick building with boarded windows. He got out, looked around nervously, then disappeared inside. Dante parked 2 blocks away. Leo, cover the back. Marco should be here in 5 minutes. Have him watch the front. Nobody leaves this building. And us? Nora asked. We go in quiet. Get answers. He checked his weapon, then looked at her seriously. If things go bad, you run. You don't try to help. You don't try to fight. You run, and you call the police. Understood? Dante. Understood. She nodded reluctantly. They approached from the side, finding a broken window on the ground floor. Dante helped Nora through, then followed. Inside was darkness and the smell of mold, but there was light coming from upstairs, flashlights or lanterns. Voices echoed down. 2 men arguing. Told you not to come here. That was Marcus, angry and scared. I needed to check on the merchandise. A deeper voice, familiar.
Vince.
Dante's hand tightened on his gun. He moved up the stairs silently, Nora behind him, each step carefully placed. The kid's fine, Marcus was saying. Fed her an hour ago. She's sleeping. Good.
Keep her that way.
We might need to move her again if Moretti keeps pushing. This is crazy, man. You said it would be quick, grab her, make the threat, get what you want. But now there's bodies dropping, shootouts at the docks. I didn't sign up for this. You signed up the minute you took my money. Vince's voice was cold. And you'll keep your mouth shut if you want to see the rest of it. They'd reached the second-floor landing. Through a half-open door, Nora could see light. Her heart hammered so hard, she thought they'd hear it. Dante held up 3 fingers, counting down silently.
3, 2, 1.
He kicked the door open, gun raised. Don't move. The room erupted in chaos. Marcus dove for a weapon on a nearby table, but Leo burst through a window, tackling him to the ground. Vince pulled his gun, but Dante was faster, firing a shot that sent Vince's weapon skittering across the floor. It's over, Vince, Dante said, his voice deadly calm. But Vince was smiling. Actually smiling. Is it? That's when Nora saw what was wrong. The room was too empty, too staged. A table, some chairs, supplies for keeping someone prisoner. But no prisoner. Where's my daughter? Nora demanded, rushing forward. Where is she? Safe, Vince said. Somewhere you'll never find her. Not without me. Dante pressed the gun to Vince's temple. Last chance. Where's the girl? Kill me, and she dies alone in the dark. Is that what you want? Vince's confidence was unshakable. I'm the only one who knows where she is. Even Marcus here doesn't know. I kept it compartmentalized. Smart, right? Dante's finger tensed on the trigger, but he didn't fire. Vince had him, and he knew it. Here's what's going to happen, Vince continued. You're going to let me walk out of here. You're going to give me 24 hours to leave the city. And then, once I'm safe, I'll send you the location. You think I'm that stupid? I think you don't have a choice, Vince nodded toward Nora. Ask the mother. What's more important, revenge on me or getting her kid back alive? Nora felt tears burning her eyes. She wanted to scream, to tear Vince apart with her bare hands. But he was right. If he died without talking, Lily might never be found. Dante's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something changed in his expression. Actually, Vince, I do have a choice. Because while you were being clever, my people were being smarter. He held up the phone, showing a message from his tech team. Tracked second burner phone. GPS shows repeated visits to 347 Harbor Street, basement level. High probability target location. Vince's face went pale. Harbor Street, Dante said softly. That's the old fish processing plant, isn't it? The one that was shut down 3 years ago for health violations. The one that has basement cold storage units, soundproof and secure. He stepped closer. The one that you personally oversaw the closure of, giving you perfect knowledge of its layout. You're bluffing, Marco, Dante said into his phone. Take Romano's team to 347 Harbor Street, basement level. Find the girl. Through the phone, they heard Marco's acknowledgement, then the sound of vehicles starting, driving away. Vince lunged forward, desperate now. You don't understand. This isn't just about me. There are people, powerful people, who wanted you gone. I was just the face of it. Dante grabbed him by the collar. Who? Your mentor, Vince spat.
Tommy Russo.
The whole time it was him. He wanted to retire you, take back control, but you were too strong. So he used me, promised me your position if I could make you look weak. The words hung in the air like poison.
Tommy.
The man who'd taught Dante everything. The man he'd trusted like a father. You're lying, Dante said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. Am I? Ask yourself, who knew your schedules, your routes, your weaknesses? Who had access to everything?
Vince smiled bitterly.
He played us both. Dante's phone rang. Marco's name on the screen. Boss, Marco's voice came through excited. We found her. The girl's here. She's alive. Nora's knees buckled. Dante caught her before she fell, his hand steady on her arm. She's okay? Nora gasped into the phone. She's really okay. Scared, hungry, but physically unharmed, Marco reported. We're bringing her to the safe house now. ETA 20 minutes. Nora covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. 2 days. 48 hours of living hell, and finally, her daughter was safe. Dante kept the phone to his ear, his eyes never leaving Vince. Good work, Marco.
Keep her calm.
Tell her that her mother is coming, he paused. And Marco? After you secure the girl, I need you to bring someone else in.
Tommy Husso.
Silence on the other end. Boss, you sure about that? I'm sure. Find him. Bring him to the warehouse on Sullivan Street. Tell him I need to see him urgently about the Vince situation. Make it convincing. Copy that. Dante ended the call and looked at Vince, who was slumped against the wall, all his bravado gone. Leo, take Vince to the Sullivan Street warehouse. Keep him alive and conscious. I'll deal with him after I sort out the truth about Tommy. What about Marcus? Leo asked, still holding the dealer pinned to the ground.
He's small time.
A hired hand. Dante's voice was cold with disgust. But he helped kidnap a child. Let the police have him. Anonymous tip, everything gift-wrapped. He'll spend the next 20 years in a cell thinking about good luck charms and ring buddies. Marcus began to sob. I didn't know it was a kid at first, I swear. Vince just said it was a pickup job, and by the time I realized. Save it for your lawyer, Dante said. 10 minutes later, Nora was back in a Mercedes, her whole body shaking with a combination of relief, exhaustion, and residual fear. They were driving toward the safe house, toward Lily, and nothing else mattered. Thank you, she whispered. I don't have words for her. You don't need to thank me. Dante kept his eyes on the road, but his voice was gentler than she'd heard it. Just be there when your daughter needs you. That's enough. They pulled up to the safe house just as Marco's SUV arrived. The door opened, and a small figure emerged, wrapped in someone's jacket that was far too big for her. Lily. Nora was out of the car before it fully stopped, running across the pavement. Mommy. They collided in the middle, Nora dropping to her knees and wrapping her arms around her daughter. Lily was crying, Nora was crying, and for a long moment, the rest of the world ceased to exist. I knew you'd come, Lily sobbed into her mother's shoulder. I knew you'd find me. Always, baby. Always. Nora pulled back, examining her daughter's face. Dirty, tear-streaked, exhausted, but whole.
Alive.
Did they hurt you? They were scary. They kept moving me to different places. But they didn't hurt me. They just kept saying I had to wait, that everything would be okay. Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. I was so scared, Mommy. I know, sweetheart. But you're safe now. Dante watched from a distance, giving them space. Marco approached him quietly. Tommy's on his way to Sullivan Street. Should be there in 15-inch. Good. Dante's jaw tightened. This ends tonight. You really think Tommy's behind it? I think Vince had no reason to lie at that point. He knew he was finished either way. Dante glanced at Nora and Lily, still wrapped in each other's arms. Tommy always said loyalty was everything. Guess he forgot what that word meant. Nora finally stood, holding Lily's hand tightly. She walked over to Dante, her daughter pressed against her side. Lily, this is Mr. Moretti. He's the man who helped find you. Lily looked up at Dante with wide eyes. Thank you, she said softly. You're welcome. Dante crouched down to her level, his intimidating presence somehow gentle. You're a brave kid. Your mom moved heaven and earth to find you. Don't forget that. Lily nodded solemnly. Dante stood and looked at Nora. Marco will take you both somewhere safe. A hotel, clean clothes, food, whatever you need. I have business to finish. Tommy, Nora said. It wasn't a question.
Tommy.
And Vince. This whole situation needs to be resolved before anyone else gets hurt. Will you? Nora hesitated. Will we see you again? Dante was quiet for a moment, something unreadable in his expression. After tonight, your daughter will be safe. My organization will have no reason to come near either of you ever again. You can go back to your life. And, if I don't want to? The words surprised Nora even as she said them. Go back to normal, I mean. After everything that's happened, after everything you've done, I can't just pretend none of this existed. What are you saying? I'm saying that the world isn't as simple as I thought it was. That sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you can't, and sometimes the people you're supposed to fear are the only ones who will. She squeezed Lily's hand. I'm saying that I trust you, Dante Moretti, and I think maybe you could use someone in your life who isn't afraid to tell you the truth. Dante studied her face for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled, a real smile, not the calculated expressions she'd seen him use with others. Maybe I could, he said. But first, I need to clean up this mess. Make sure the thread is gone for good. Then we'll wait. Nora's voice was firm. We'll wait for you to finish what needs to be done. And then we'll talk about what happens next. Dante nodded. He turned to Marco. Take care of them. With my life, boss. As Marco led Nora and Lily toward the SUV, Lily looked back over her shoulder at Dante. Will you really come back? I will, Dante promised. And watching him walk toward his car, jaw set with determination and purpose, Nora believed him. The warehouse on Sullivan Street was one of Dante's oldest properties, a place where disputes were settled and loyalty was tested. Tonight, it would serve both purposes. Dante arrived to find Vince already secured to a chair in the center of the empty space, Leo standing guard. The traitor looked significantly worse than he had an hour ago, beaten, bloody, but still breathing, still conscious enough to be useful. Where's Tommy? Dante asked. In the back office. Been there for 10 minutes. Won't talk to anyone but you. Dante nodded, checked his weapon, and walked through the warehouse toward the small office at the rear. The door was closed. He pushed it open. Tommy Russo sat behind an old desk, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked older than Dante remembered, his silver hair thinner, his shoulders more stooped. But his eyes were still sharp, still calculating. Dante, Tommy said, raising his glass in a mock toast. Marco said it was urgent. Something about Vince. We caught him. He's outside, tied up, ready to answer for what he did. Good. That bastard nearly destroyed everything we built. Tommy took a sip of whiskey. What do you need from me? The truth. Tommy's hand paused halfway to setting down his glass. About what? About whether you ordered him to do it. Dante closed the door behind him, leaning against it. About whether this whole thing, the kidnapping, the coup attempt, all of it was your plan. For a long moment, Tommy said nothing. Then he laughed, a dry, bitter sound. He told you. Of course he did. Vince always was weak under pressure. The confirmation hit Dante like a physical blow, even though he'd expected it. Why? Why? Tommy set down his glass carefully. Because you were supposed to be temporary, Dante. A placeholder until I decided to come back. But you got comfortable. Started making decisions like you actually owned this organization. Started caring more about rules and honor than about profit. I made us stronger. More legitimate. Less vulnerable to federal investigations. You made us soft. Tommy stood, his voice rising. We're criminals, Dante. We take what we want. We don't apologize for it. We don't have moral codes about hurting kids or protecting civilians. That's weakness talking. So you had Vince kidnap an innocent child to prove a point. I had Vince create a situation that would expose your weakness. The girl was never meant to be hurt, just leverage to show everyone that you'd fold under personal pressure. That you'd put one random woman's feelings above the good of the organization. Tommy's eyes hardened. And I was right. You did fold. You obsessed over finding this kid instead of running your business. You got shot because you were distracted. You're proving my point. Dante's hand moved to his gun. That girl is safe now. Vince is captured. Your plan failed. Did it? Tommy smiled. Look at you. Ready to kill me, your own mentor, over what? A single mother and her daughter? This is exactly what I'm talking about, Dante. You've lost perspective. No. I've gained it. Dante's voice was steady, cold. You taught me that loyalty was everything. That family, even our criminal family, meant something. That we had lines we didn't cross. And then you betrayed every single one of those lessons. I taught you to survive. To win. Everything else is just pretty words. Outside, A commotion erupted. Shouting, then gunfire. Dante spun toward the door just as it exploded inward. Four men rushed in, Tommy's personal security team. They'd been waiting hidden for exactly this moment. Dante dove behind the desk as bullets tore through the office. Tommy scrambled toward a back exit, surprisingly agile for his age. "Kill him," Tommy shouted. "Make it look like Vince's people did it." The warehouse erupted into chaos. Leo's voice boomed from outside. "Boss, we got multiple hostiles." Dante returned fire, dropping one of Tommy's guards. The other three spread out, using the office furniture as cover. This was an execution. Tommy had planned to eliminate Dante tonight one way or another. But Tommy had forgotten one thing. Dante hadn't survived this long by being unprepared. The warehouse's back entrance burst open as Romano and his team flooded in, weapons raised. The fight shifted instantly. Tommy's men were caught in crossfire, outnumbered and outgunned. Dante moved during the confusion, sprinting after Tommy. The old man was heading for a loading dock exit, but Dante was faster. He caught Tommy at the door, slamming him against the wall. "It's over," Dante said. Tommy spat blood. "You think killing me solves anything? There are others who think like I do. Others will come after you eventually. Maybe. But they'll remember what happened to you. They'll remember the price of betrayal. So you'll kill me? Your mentor? The man who made you?" Dante's gun pressed against Tommy's chest. For a moment, the warehouse went silent except for their breathing. "You didn't make me, Tommy. You taught me. There's a difference." Dante's finger tightened on the trigger. "And the most important thing you taught me, whether you meant to or not, was that loyalty has to be earned. You stopped earning it the day you decided one innocent life didn't matter."
"She's nobody, Dante."
"A random kid. She's somebody's entire world." The gunshot echoed through the warehouse. Tommy Russo slumped to the ground, eyes wide with surprise, blood spreading across his expensive shirt. He tried to speak, but no words came. After a moment, he went still. Dante stood over the body of his former mentor, feeling nothing but emptiness. Behind him, Leo appeared. "It's done, boss. Vince's people are down. What do you want us to do with Vince?" Dante holstered his weapon and walked back toward where Vince was tied up. The traitor looked terrified now, all his bravado gone. "You were right about Tommy," Dante said quietly. "He used you, made promises he never intended to keep. So what now?" Vince's voice shook. "Now you disappear."
"Permanently."
Dante nodded to Leo, then walked away. He didn't need to watch. Some things were better left to professionals. The war was over. Sunrise came slowly to the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Dante stood on the rooftop of his safe house, a cup of coffee growing cold in his hands. He hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. The weight of the night's events pressed down on him like a physical thing. He'd killed his mentor, ended a coup, dismantled a conspiracy that had threatened everything he'd built. And somehow, the only thing he could think about was whether Nora and her daughter were okay. The rooftop door opened. Nora stepped out, wrapped in a borrowed jacket against the morning chill. Her hair was still damp from a shower, and she looked more rested than she had in days, but there was a wariness in her eyes. "Marco said I'd find you up here," she said, moving to stand beside him at the railing. "How's Lily?" "Finally sleeping." "Really sleeping, not that fitful half-awake thing she's been doing?" Nora's voice was soft. "She ate 3 bowls of cereal and told me about every single minute she was held captive. She needed to get it out, I think. She's strong, like her mother." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the city wake up. Traffic was beginning to flow on the streets below. People heading to work, to school, to normal lives that didn't involve warehouses and gunfights and life-or-death decisions. "Is it finished?" Nora asked. "Really finished. Tommy's dead. Vince is dead. The people who backed them have scattered or pledged loyalty again." Dante set down his coffee cup. "The organization is stable. No one else will come after you or Lily. You have my word." "Your word means something I've learned." Dante turned to look at her. You should leave the city. Take Lily somewhere safe, somewhere no one knows your name or your face. Start over completely. I'll provide money, new identities, whatever you need. You're trying to protect us. I'm trying to give you the life you deserve. The one you had before all this happened. That life doesn't exist anymore. Nora met his eyes. I've seen too much. Learned too much. I know what the city really is now, the layers beneath the surface that most people never see. That's exactly why you should leave. Knowing those things, being connected to me, it's dangerous. Everything's dangerous, Dante. I learned that when my daughter was taken from a safe neighborhood in broad daylight. Nora moved closer. But I also learned that the world isn't divided into good people and bad people. It's more complicated than that. I've done things, Nora. Terrible things. Things that would horrify you if you knew the details. Maybe. But you also saved my daughter when no one else could. You risked your life, your organization, everything, for a woman and child you didn't even know. She paused. That has to count for something. One good deed doesn't erase a lifetime of sins.
No.
But it proves you're capable of good. That you have lines you won't cross. Nora touched his arm gently. Lily asked about you this morning. She wanted to know if you were the kind of man we could trust. What did you tell her? I told her yes. That you were dangerous, yes. That you lived in a world she couldn't fully understand yet, yes. But that when it mattered most, you chose to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. Dante looked away, uncomfortable with the praise. She's 8 years old. She deserves better than to be connected to someone like me. She deserves to be safe. And right now, the safest place for us is under your protection. Nora's voice was firm. The people who took her might be gone, but how many others out there know what happened? Know that we exist? You said it yourself, we're vulnerable now. She wasn't wrong. The moment Nora had approached him at that gas station, she'd entered his world. And that world didn't easily let people leave. If you stay, Dante said slowly, it won't be the same as before. Your apartment, your jobs, your routine, all of that's gone. I'll set you up somewhere secure. Somewhere my people can watch over you without being obvious about it. We'd be prisoners. You'd be protected. For how long? Until I'm certain the threat is gone. Could be months. Could be longer. He turned to face her fully. I won't lie to you, Nora. This isn't a fairy tale. I can't promise you a normal life. I can only promise that as long as you're under my protection, no one will hurt you or Lily again. Nora was quiet, considering. Behind them, the sun continued its slow climb, washing the rooftop in golden light. I need to think about it, she said finally. Talk to Lily. This affects her too. Of course. But Dante? She looked up at him, and something in her expression made his breath catch. When I slipped you that note at the gas station, I was desperate. Terrified. I would have done anything to save my daughter. But now, she trailed off, searching for words. Now I think maybe we could do more than just survive. Maybe we could actually build something. Not love, not yet.
But trust. Partnership.
A fragile new beginning. Dante wanted to tell her it was a bad idea. That she should run far away and never look back. That he wasn't worth the risk. But instead, he found himself saying, maybe we could. The rooftop door opened again. Lily emerged, rubbing sleep from her eyes. She saw her mother and smiled, then noticed Dante and hesitated. It's okay, sweetheart, Nora said, holding out her hand. Lily walked over, tucking herself against her mother's side. She looked up at Dante shyly. Are you going to keep us safe? Yes, Dante said.
No hesitation.
No doubt. Promise. I promise. Lily nodded, satisfied. She looked out at the city, at the sunrise painting everything in shades of hope. It's pretty up here, she said softly. It is, Nora agreed, squeezing her daughter close. They stood together on that rooftop, a mafia boss, a single mother, and a brave little girl, watching the city wake up. None of them knew what the future held. None of them could promise it would be easy. But for now, as the sun rose over New York and a new day began, They had something precious: safety, trust, and the possibility of something more. Not love. Not yet. Just survival, earned trust, and a fragile new beginning. The city stretched out before them, full of danger and opportunity in equal measure. And together, they would face whatever came next.
The end.